The chamber above the council core star was silent. Not the calm kind of silence. The kind that presses against the skin and makes even ancient beings uneasy. Representatives from 100 civilizations floated or sat in their assigned tiers, watching the central platform where the human delegation stood. Humanity had arrived early. They always did. They waited. They listened. They spoke only when asked. That, more than anything, was why no one feared them. The council speaker finished reading the final terms of the treaty. The words echoed through the chamber in a dozen translated tones. Restrictions on human expansion, limits on military tonnage, mandatory oversight on research, permanent inspection rights. All in the name of galactic stability. Around the chamber, delegates nodded. Some barely paid attention. To them, this was routine. Another small power being contained before it grew inconvenient. The speaker turned toward the human ambassador. Do you consent? The human did not answer right away. He stood still, hands behind his back, eyes focused not on the speaker, but on the star burning far below the transparent floor. It was old, dying, held together by technology far beyond what most species understood. For a moment, some delegates felt a strange discomfort. The human's silence felt heavy. Then he spoke. Humanity withdraws. The translation rippled through the chamber. Confusion followed. The speaker blinked. Withdraws from which clause? From diplomacy, the human said calmly. A murmur spread. Laughter followed in a few sections. A withdrawal meant sanctions. Isolation. Weakness. The speaker's voice hardened. You understand the consequences? Yes, the human replied. That is why we are leaving. No threats. No warnings. No raised voice. The human bowed slightly, an old gesture, forgotten by most, and turned away. The rest of the delegation followed. Their footsteps echoed as they exited the chamber. The doors sealed shut behind them. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the star below the chamber flickered. Just once. Sensors across the council core spiked. Power readings surged, then stabilized. Technicians began speaking at once, pulling data from long-range arrays. Probably a calibration error, someone said. The speaker nodded. Proceed. But the discomfort did not fade. Across the galaxy, things began to change. A deep space listening post near the outer spiral arm stopped responding. No distress signal. No explosion. It simply went silent. Then another. And another. Trade vessels reported navigation drift near regions marked as inactive. Ancient coordinates, areas sealed off thousands of cycles ago, began unlocking on their own. Automated beacons, long dead, started transmitting simple signals. Active. Online. Awaiting command. Military analysts dismissed it as coincidence. Old systems failing. Forgotten relics waking up. But the pattern spread too evenly. Too clean. Back at the council core, a junior archivist accessed restricted historical files, trying to find precedent. What he found made his hands tremble. Records from an ancient conflict. Fragmented. Incomplete. One name appeared again and again, often erased or marked as resolved. Humans. The archivist requested clearance. It was denied. He requested again. This time, it was granted, quietly. What he saw next never reached public channels. Meanwhile, human space closed. Borders that had been open for centuries were sealed without announcement. Civilian traffic was rerouted. Shipyards that had sat idle for generations lit up with activity. Not frantic. Not rushed. Prepared. Deep beneath planetary surfaces, systems humanity had never declared came online. Fleets without names began moving through paths no one else could see. No signals were sent. No warnings issued. The galaxy felt it before it understood it. A pressure. A sense of being watched. At the council core, emergency alerts began stacking faster than they could be processed. Sensor blackouts. Communication delays. Regions where physics itself seemed adjusted. The speaker tried to contact the human delegation. There was no reply. Finally, a single message appeared across all major channels. Human origin. No encryption. Just one sentence. Silence does not mean peace. The transmission ended. No explanation followed. The council chamber, once loud with politics and confidence, fell into absolute quiet. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy understood something was wrong. Humanity had not declared war. Humanity had simply stopped asking for permission. And somewhere in the dark, things the galaxy had never known were waking up, because the one species that kept them contained had decided to walk away. The silence spread, and with it, fear. The galaxy did not panic right away. At first, leaders did what they always did when faced with uncertainty. They argued. Emergency sessions were called across 100 capitals. Analysts talked over each other. Military advisors downplayed the human message, calling it psychological theater. Economists warned against overreaction. Diplomats insisted the silence could still be reversed. Humans are emotional, one counselor said. They will return once they feel heard. But the silence did not break. Instead, it deepened. 3 days after humanity walked out, long-range sensors along the Perseus Drift detected something impossible. Old navigation corridors, routes abandoned so long ago their charts were considered myth, were lighting up. Not with traffic, with alignment. Space itself was being adjusted. Engineers struggled to explain it. Gravity gradients smoothed. Radiation storms vanished. Dead regions became stable again. Someone was repairing the galaxy. Not building. Not conquering. Correcting. The first official investigation team was dispatched to an abandoned system near the galactic rim. The system had been marked unsafe for 12,000 cycles after an unknown event destabilized its star. When the team arrived, the star was calm. Perfectly balanced. Artificially so. Orbiting, it was a structure the size of a small moon. Human design, clean lines, dark hull, no visible weapons. It did not respond to hails. It did not target them. It simply remained there, like a locked door. The team returned shaken. Their report triggered restricted-level alarms across multiple governments. Meanwhile, classified archives were opened. What had been dismissed as rumor was suddenly treated as evidence. Ancient battle records. Half-a-race conflicts. Civilizations that vanished without explanation. Every trail ended the same way. After the event, stability followed. And before stability, there were humans. A senior historian on the Council Corps finally spoke aloud what others had only thought. Humans were never a junior species, she said quietly. They were custodians. The word felt wrong even as it left her mouth. Custodians implied authority, control, choice. Humans had never ruled. They had endured. That distinction began to matter as reports continued to arrive. A border empire attempted to test human resolve. It was not a full invasion, just a probe. A small fleet crossed into human-claimed space and seized a mining outpost. No civilians were harmed. The Empire framed it as a misunderstanding. They expected a response. They received nothing. No fleets. No message. No condemnation. For 12 hours, nothing happened. Then the star system went dark. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Dark. Every ship inside lost power at the same moment. Fusion cores shut down. Backup systems failed. Even emergency life support flickered. Sensors recorded no weapon discharge. No energy spike. Just absence. The Empire's fleet drifted helplessly. Hours later, power returned. Slowly. Carefully. The ships were intact. The crews are alive. The outpost untouched. But something was missing. Their navigational data. Every chart. Every star map. Every hyperspace coordinate. Gone. Not erased. Removed with surgical precision. A message finally arrived, broadcast directly into the fleet's command systems. Leave, it said. Do not return. The Empire complied. Word spread faster than official channels could contain it. Fear replaced doubt. Borders tightened. Fleets mobilized, not to attack, but to retreat. At the Council Corps, the speaker called for emergency contact with Earth. This time, the response came. A single human appeared on the central display. No uniform. No rank markings. Just a calm face and tired eyes. You withdrew, the speaker said. Why? The human did not answer immediately. When we stayed, he said at last, you listened politely and ignored us. When we warned you, you voted. When we offered protection, you negotiated limits. The speaker bristled. You could have spoken louder. The human shook his head. That is the mistake everyone makes. Loud voices are not strong. They are desperate. Silence filled the chamber again. We stayed quiet. The human continued. Because we were busy. Busy with what? The speaker demanded. The human expression did not change. Fixing what you broke, he said. The transmission ended. No follow-up. No explanation. Behind the scenes, panic finally broke through the galaxy's polished surface. Defense ministries discovered something horrifying. Their sensor networks were incomplete. Whole layers of space had been invisible for centuries, masked by systems no one remembered installing. Human systems, hidden beneath stars, inside nebulae, wrapped around unstable regions like invisible armor. And they were shutting down. Not failing, shutting down. Without them, old dangers began to stir. Stellar anomalies, exotic matter fields, things that should not exist according to modern science. Things humanity had quietly kept contained. A classified emergency memo circulated among top leaders. If humanity fully disengaged, projections showed cascading failures across the galaxy within decades. Not war, not invasion, collapse. The galaxy had not feared humans because it had never seen their weapons. It had trusted peace because it did not know who maintained it. As the truth spread through the highest levels of power, a new question replaced all others. If humans were no longer protecting the galaxy, what were they preparing for? The final report of the day arrived from deep space. A massive structure had been detected moving beyond the galactic edge. Human origin, older than any recorded civilization. Awakening systems measuring on a scale that made scientists go quiet. No destination listed. No mission stated. Just one internal designation, translated automatically across every language. Contingency. The part ends as leaders across the galaxy stare at the same word, realizing too late that humanity did not walk away out of anger. They walked away because the next step was not diplomacy. It escalated. The galaxy finally did what it always swore it never would. It tried to unite. Fear has a way of rewriting principles. Empires that had spent centuries sabotaging one another now shared data openly. Borders once guarded with suspicion were opened for joint fleets. Emergency councils replaced trade summits. War doctrines were rewritten in days instead of decades. All of it pointed in one direction. Earth, not as an enemy to defeat, but as a force that had to be understood before it decided to act again. The first mistake was assuming humanity would respond to pressure. A coalition of 12 major powers assembled the largest diplomatic task force in galactic history. Not a military armada, but something meant to project seriousness. Thousands of ships. Media present. Observers from neutral systems are invited to watch. The plan was simple: arrive at the edge of human space, demonstrate unity, and demand renewed talks. They crossed the boundary without resistance. Human space felt empty. No patrols. No traffic. No civilian signals. Even the background noise of communication traffic was gone. It was as if an entire civilization had stepped out of the room and turned off the lights. The coalition fleet advanced deeper. That was when the first ship vanished. No explosion. No warning. One moment it was there, broadcasting telemetry. The next, it was gone, not destroyed, not displaced. Simply removed from existence. Command channels erupted. Before anyone could react, 3 more ships disappeared. Then 10. Then 50. Panic spread through the formation. Fleets broke alignment. Emergency jumps were attempted. None worked. Humanity did not appear. Instead, the space around the fleet began to change. Stars dimmed. Distance distorted. Instruments gave conflicting readings, each one technically correct and completely useless. Physics behaved politely, then stopped cooperating altogether. A single human vessel finally emerged, quietly, without jump signatures. It was smaller than expected. Smooth. Featureless. It did not target the fleet. It was transmitted. "This space is under maintenance," the voice said. Neutral. Almost bored. "You are interfering." A coalition admiral demanded an explanation, his voice shaking despite training. "What happened to our ships?" "They were relocated," the human replied. "Where?" "Outside relevance." The words chilled everyone listening. The human vessel remained still. "You are not under attack," the voice continued. "You are in the way." Then the space returned to normal. The remaining coalition ships found themselves expelled, instantly, back across the border. Systems restored. Damage minimal. But the missing ships did not return. Later analysis would reveal they were not destroyed. They were placed in isolated containment zones, light years apart. Each one frozen in time. Crews alive, but unable to move, communicate, or age. Humanity had not killed them. Humanity had paused them. The message was clear. The force was not escalated. It was an interruption. Back in the council core, the reaction was not outrage. It was terrifying. For the first time, military analysts admitted what they had avoided saying aloud. Humanity's technology was not superior by degrees. It operated on entirely different assumptions. While others built weapons to overpower enemies, humans built systems to edit reality around problems. And they had been doing it quietly for a very long time. Desperate, the Council authorized the release of the deepest sealed archives, records older than most member species. What they found reshaped everything. Long before the modern galactic order existed, there had been cycles of collapse, waves of extinction-level events, entities not bound by normal space-time, self-replicating anomalies, intelligence without form. Each time, the records showed the same pattern: crisis, intervention, stability, silence, and buried in the margins, a single recurring reference: Terran Containment Initiative. Humans had not joined the galaxy late. They had stepped back early. A former council historian, now retired and barely remembered, was brought in under emergency authority. She studied the data for hours without speaking. Finally, she looked up. They were never part of the system, she said. They were the fail-safe. But why withdraw now? Someone asked. Why walk away? The historian closed her eyes. Because the system has reached the point where intervention causes more harm than absence. As if to confirm her words, new alerts flooded in. Regions once stabilized by unknown forces began to destabilize. Minor, at first. A star burning slightly hotter than it should. A hyperspace corridor developing turbulence. Nothing catastrophic yet, but trending upward. Human containment systems were powering down, not abruptly, but methodically, layer by layer. Like hands slowly releasing a structure they had held together for millennia. The galaxy had grown dependent without knowing it. And now it was being forced to stand on its own. A second human transmission arrived, this one addressed to no government in particular. We are not punishing you, the message said. We are correcting a dependency. You learn peace by borrowing our restraint. That era is ending. The message paused, as if the speaker considered their next words carefully. You must now choose what kind of galaxy survives without us. The transmission ended. No coordinates. No signature. As panic spread among leaders, a quieter reaction unfolded elsewhere. On fringe worlds. On minor colonies. Among species long ignored by the great powers. They began to realize something. Humans had not protected the powerful. They had protected everyone. The big empires had thrived because the dangerous things never reached them. The small worlds had survived because extinction never came. And now the shield was lifting. In deep space, far beyond any border, ancient sensors detected movement. Not human. Something old. Something that recognized the change immediately. For the first time in a very long time, the galaxy was no longer being watched by its silent guardian. And the things humanity had kept contained were starting to notice. The part ends not with an explosion, but with a single data point appearing on every deep space monitor across multiple civilizations. Unknown signal detected. Origin, outside mapped reality. Status, advancing. No one knew how to stop it. And for the first time, no one knew if humans would. The signal did not behave like anything the galaxy understood. It did not travel faster than light. It did not bend space. It did not announce itself with energy spikes or radiation. It simply arrived, as if distance had agreed to stop matching. At first, it was only visible to deep space observatories. A faint distortion in background reality, like a shadow cast by something that did not exist yet. Scientists argued over terminology. Some called it a waveform. Others called it a void front. One thing was certain. It was moving. And it was moving toward populated space. Emergency alerts went out across the council core. This was no longer theoretical. Predictive models, once dismissed as worst-case fantasy, began lining up with terrifying precision. Without human containment systems active, the galaxy's natural defenses were inadequate. Worse, most of them were never designed to face this kind of threat. Military leaders demanded action. Fleets were mobilized along projected paths. Experimental weapons were deployed. Sensor nets were expanded. None of it mattered. The first engagement lasted less than a second. A defensive fleet positioned near a binary star system opened fire as the distortion crossed into real space. Energy beams, gravity weapons, exotic particle lances, everything hit at once. The distortion did not react. It did not absorb the attack. It passed through it. The ship's weapons systems failed immediately afterward. Not damaged, invalidated. Control interfaces no longer matched reality. Physics equations returned false results. Then the ships began to come apart. Not violently, gently. Atoms losing agreement on how to stay together. No explosion, no debris, just disassembly. The signal continued forward, unchanged. The fleet was gone. Across the galaxy, panic became unavoidable. This was not an enemy that could be fought. It was a correction event, a phenomenon that erased structures it did not recognize as stable. The kind of thing humanity's archives had warned about. The kind of thing humanity had always handled alone. The Council issued its first unified transmission in history, broadcast across every known channel, translated into every language. A plea to humanity. We acknowledge our failure. We request assistance. The response did not come from Earth. It came from everywhere else. Human systems, long dormant, flickered briefly. Ancient beacons lit up, not to activate, but to record, to observe, to archive. Humanity was watching, but they were not intervening. On the Council core, desperation turned inward. Accusations flew. Who voted for the treaty? Who pushed the restrictions? Who ignored the warnings? It did not matter anymore. The signal crossed into a densely populated region. Entire trade hubs vanished. Not destroyed, removed. Billions of lives erased without pain, without resistance, without even awareness. The galaxy was not under attack. It was being unmade. And still, no human fleets arrived. Finally, a private channel opened. One human delegate appeared on the screen. Older than most remembered him. His expression was not cold. I was exhausted. You are asking us to fix this, he said. Yes, the speaker replied, voice shaking. Please. The human nodded slowly. We can, he said. Hope surged through the chamber. But you must understand something first. The delegate gestured, and the display behind him shifted. Ancient footage played. Human ships, crude by modern standards, engaging impossible shapes. Sacrifices. Losses. Entire human fleets erased to delay threats the galaxy never learned about. For thousands of years, he said, we stood between existence and erasure. We did not ask for credit. We did not demand authority. The footage changed, human worlds burning, populations evacuated, systems sealed forever. We paid the price, he continued. Every time. The speaker swallowed. Then why stop? The human looked directly into the camera. Because you stopped learning, he said. You built comfort on our silence. You treated restraint as weakness. And when we asked you to share responsibility, you voted to limit us instead. Silence filled the chamber. We did not walk away in anger, the human said. We walked away to see if the galaxy could stand without leaning on us. The speaker's voice cracked. And if we can't? The human did not answer immediately. If you can't, he said finally, then intervening again only postpones collapse. A new alert interrupted the conversation. The signal had split. Multiple fronts now advanced simultaneously. The galaxy was running out of time. The speaker made the decision no one had ever expected to hear. What do you require? She asked. The human leaned back slightly. Consent, he said. Not to save you. To change you. The chamber erupted. What kind of change? Someone demanded. The human's expression hardened, not with anger, but with resolve. We will not protect a galaxy that refuses to mature, he said. If we intervene, it will not be quiet. It will not be invisible, and it will not preserve the current order. He let that sink in. We will dismantle power structures. We will remove empires that depend on exploitation. We will force cooperation where competition breeds collapse. You would rule us, an admiral accused. No, the human replied. We would teach you to survive without us. The speaker closed her eyes. How long do we have? The human checked a display off-screen. Hours, he said. Debate died instantly. One by one, representatives authorized the impossible, granting humanity unrestricted operational authority across the galaxy. No oversight. No veto. No limits. The treaty that had once constrained humanity was officially voided. The human nodded once. Then understand this, he said. The galaxy you wake up to will not be the one you built. The transmission ended. Across human space, systems that had been shutting down reversed direction. Containment grids flared to life. Not gently, but aggressively. New constructs emerged from folded space. Fleets unlike anything ever recorded began moving, not toward borders, but toward impact points. The signal reacted. For the first time, it changed behavior. It accelerated. Humanity responded in kind. Deep in the void, a human command voice echoed through channels never meant to be heard. Phase 1 complete, it said calmly. Begin correction. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The part ends as the first human strike does not target the signal, but the space around it, rewriting the rules it depends on. For the first time since the crisis began, the advancing unknown slows. And the galaxy realizes something terrifying and awe-inspiring at once. Humanity is not fighting the threat. Humanity is teaching reality how to reject it. Humanity did not attack the unknown. That was the first thing the galaxy misunderstood. Where every other civilization would have thrown fleets, weapons, and sacrifice into the path of the advancing distortion, humans did something quieter and far more frightening. They changed the environment. Across multiple star systems, space itself began to behave differently. Not violently, not obviously. The laws that most civilizations relied on did not break. They were reinterpreted. Distances stretched in places they should not. Time lagged by fractions of seconds in others. Causality bent just enough to confuse anything that relied on predictable outcomes. The advancing distortion hesitated. For the first time since detection, its forward edge slowed, not because it was blocked, but because the space ahead of it no longer made sense. Human command networks lit up with activity. Not frantic orders. Not shouted commands. Quiet confirmations. Layer 3 anchored. Causality buffers are stable. Reality compliance holding at 87%. To the galaxy's observers, it felt unreal. They were watching something older than their civilization struggle, not against force, but against refusal. The human delegate reappeared on the council core display. His face was sharper now, more focused. Gone was the weariness. What replaced it was responsibility. We are not destroying it, he said. We are containing it long enough for you to see the cost. The cost of what? The speaker asked. Of dependence, the human replied. He gestured, and the display shifted again, this time showing internal human data, never meant to be shared. Casualty projections. Human casualty projections. Numbers climbed rapidly as the simulation ran. Fleets lost. Worlds abandoned. Entire systems sealed forever. The math was brutal. This is what it costs us every time, the human said calmly. Every intervention. Every correction. We pay so you do not have to. The speaker stared at the figures. Why show us this now? Because this time, the human said, we are not paying alone. The containment layers held, but not without strain. Human constructs, vast, invisible frameworks embedded into space itself, began to degrade. Not from damage, but from exertion. They were never meant to be permanent solutions. They were meant to buy time. Time for something else. Across the galaxy, human signals began broadcasting, not commands, but instructions. Not to governments, but to populations. Simple language. Clear steps. How to stabilize local stars. How to reinforce planetary magnetic fields. How to adapt hyperspace travel to survive turbulence. Species that had never cooperated before found themselves sharing data, sharing labor, sharing risk. Because the humans made it clear. If we do everything, the broadcast said, you learn nothing. And this will happen again. Some empires resisted. They refused to divert resources. They tried to protect their own borders instead of the whole. Humanity responded without hesitation. Those regions were isolated, cut off from human stabilization fields. When the unknown brushed their borders, those empires learned, brutally, that isolation was not protection. Their systems collapsed first. The galaxy watched it happen, not as punishment, as a demonstration. Panic turned into resolve. For the first time in galactic history, survival outweighed politics. Joint task forces formed without human oversight. Scientists from rival species worked side by side. Militaries coordinated not for conquest, but evacuation and reinforcement. Humanity watched and adjusted containment accordingly. The unknown reacted again. It changed direction. Not randomly. Intelligently. It began probing for weaknesses, testing the edges of human influence, slipping through gaps where cooperation lagged. Human command recognized the pattern instantly. It's learning, one operator said. Yes, the command voice replied. So are they. A new directive went out. Human fleets did not converge on the threat. They withdrew further. Containment layers thinned, not everywhere, but strategically. The galaxy did not understand at first. Fear surged again. "Why are you pulling back?" the speaker demanded. "You're giving it room." "No," the human replied. "We're giving you room." The unknown advanced into regions now defended by non-human coalitions. This time, the outcome was different. It did not erase everything. The adapted defenses, crude compared to human systems, did not stop the distortion, but they slowed it. They redirected it. They forced it to expend coherence. The galaxy saw something extraordinary. The threat could be influenced, not defeated, not destroyed, but managed. Humanity has always known this. They had never been gods. They had been teachers who never revealed the lesson. Until now. As hours passed, the advance stalled across multiple fronts. Casualties were still horrific, but no longer total. Survivors learned, adjusted, improved. The unknown began to fragment, not physically, but conceptually. Its unified behavior broke into competing responses. It was no longer moving with certainty. The human command voice returned, broadcast openly this time. "Containment is no longer human only," it said. "Phase 2 complete." The speaker exhaled slowly. "So this is what you wanted?" "Yes," the human replied. "A galaxy that can bleed without collapsing." Silence followed, not fearful this time. Respectful. But the cost was not finished revealing itself. Human systems began shutting down again, permanently. Constructs burned out. Anchors dissolved. Entire layers of protection humanity had built over millennia were being sacrificed. "Why dismantle them?" the speaker asked quietly. "Because if they remain," the human said, "you will lean on them again." A final update arrived from deep space. The unknown was no longer advancing. It was retreating, not fleeing, reconsidering. It had encountered resistance that adapted instead of broke. That changed the equation. Human fleets halted. No pursuit. No victory celebration. Just containment, now shared. The human delegate looked older again. "This is where we stop," he said. "You carry it from here." "What if it comes back?" someone asked. The human nodded. "It will. When you forget," he said. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, civilizations stood amid ruins and cooperation, loss and unity. They had survived, not because humanity saved them, but because humanity forced them to grow. In deep space, the last human containment construct dissolved into nothing. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was standing without a hidden hand holding it together. And somewhere beyond the edge of mapped reality, the unknown paused, watching a civilization that had finally learned how to resist extinction without a guardian. The part ends on a quiet, unsettling truth. Humanity did not win the war. Humanity made itself unnecessary. And that was the most dangerous thing it had ever done. The galaxy expected celebration. That was the mistake. When the unknown finally withdrew beyond observable space, when its distortion faded and reality settled back into something recognizable, leaders prepared speeches. Memorials were planned. Victories were drafted into history before the wreckage had even cooled. But humanity did none of that. Human fleets did not advance. Human systems did not reactivate. Human voices did not declare success. Instead, something far more unsettling began to happen. Humanity started leaving. Not in panic. Not in retreat. In stages. Across stabilized regions, human constructs disengaged completely. Anchors dissolved. Artificial constants reverted to natural ones. Systems the galaxy had depended on, often without knowing, were removed with careful precision. Stars once stabilized by human intervention were handed over to local teams with final calibration data. Hyperlanes were unlocked, no longer optimized, no longer protected. The message was unmistakable. This is yours now. On the Council core, emergency sessions were called again, this time not out of fear, but confusion. "They're dismantling everything," a strategist said. "Why now?" The speaker stared at the empty central display where the human delegate had once appeared. "Because they're finished," she said quietly. Finished did not mean gone. Human signals still existed. Observation posts still recorded. But the difference was profound. Humanity was no longer involved. On frontier worlds, the effects were felt immediately. Small conflicts flared where human deterrence had once kept tempers low. Old rivalries tested new limits. A few empires attempted to reclaim influence, convinced the worst was over. They were wrong. Without humanity holding the galaxy together, consequences returned. Fast. A regional power attempted to dominate a weaker neighbor using repurposed human stabilization tech. The attempt backfired catastrophically. The system destabilized, hyperspace collapsed, and both sides lost everything. No human correction followed. Only a brief, automated message appeared in the surviving archives. Unauthorized use. Outcome recorded. The galaxy began to understand the final lesson. Humanity had not just protected them from extinction. Humanity had protected them from themselves. And now that protection is gone. A final human transmission arrived weeks later, not broadcast loudly, not delivered to leaders alone. It appeared quietly across public channels, translated automatically, stripped of authority or threat. This is our last intervention, it said. We will not return to governance. We will not enforce balance. We will not absorb the cost of your mistakes. The message paused, as if considering its own weight. You asked us once why we stayed silent for so long. It continued. It was because silence gave you space to grow. Another pause. Now silence is all we can offer. Reaction across the galaxy was not uniform. Some worlds panicked. Some raged. Some mourned. But others, quietly, stubbornly, adapted. Joint councils replaced empires in several regions. Shared defense accords formed without human guidance. Early warning networks were built the hard way, through failure and iteration. For the first time, the galaxy's survival was no longer outsourced. Years passed. The unknown did not return, but its absence was no comfort. The memory of it reshaped strategy, philosophy, even culture. Entire generations grew up knowing one truth their ancestors never had to face. No one was coming to save them. And that changed everything. On Earth, humanity watched. Not with pride. Not with regret. With vigilance. Human fleets moved beyond mapped space, establishing positions far from galactic civilization. Not as conquerors. Not as rulers. As watchers. Because humanity knew something the galaxy still did not fully grasp. The unknown had not retreated out of fear. It had retreated out of assessment. And assessments always ended with conclusions. In the final scene, deep within human space, a command node lights up. Ancient. Scarred. Built not for diplomacy, but for survival at the edge of existence. A human officer reviews long-range data. Status? A voice asks. The officer exhales slowly. The galaxy is stable, she says. For now. And them. A pause. They're still out there, she replies. Watching. Learning. The voice considers this. Good, it says. So are we. The screen fades as the command node powers down, returning to quiet readiness. The galaxy believes the age of humanity is over. Humanity knows better. They did not leave because the danger ended. They left because the galaxy finally reached the point where standing alone was the only way forward. And when the next extinction-level threat comes, because it always does, humanity will not rush in as guardians. They will arrive as equals. Or not at all. The part ends on a final, chilling truth. Humanity did not abandon the galaxy. Humanity trusted it. And trust, in a universe like this, is the most dangerous gamble of all. The galaxy learned to live with the quiet. That, more than any war or catastrophe, reshaped it. Without humanity's hidden systems humming beneath reality, space felt sharper, less forgiving. Mistakes no longer vanished into correction fields or unseen stabilizers. Every miscalculation carried weight. Every decision echoed forward instead of being quietly absorbed. At first, that terrified everyone. Then, slowly it changed them. New institutions formed. Not grand empires, not centralized councils bloated with politics, but networks. Adaptive coalitions built around shared survival instead of dominance. Intelligence was pooled. Defense was coordinated. No single power could act alone without consequences, because there was no longer a silent hand smoothing over the damage. Years passed. The unknown did not return, but the galaxy no longer trusted its absence. Deep space observatories expanded beyond anything attempted before. Sensor webs stretched into regions once considered unreachable. Early warning doctrines replaced reactionary warfare. The galaxy was no longer waiting to be saved. It was preparing, and humanity remained exactly where it said it would be. Watching. Far beyond the mapped edge, human installations drifted in dark orbits around nothing. No stars, no planets, just engineered stillness. Places designed not for comfort, but for vigilance. Human crews rotated in silence, studying patterns most civilizations would never notice, subtle distortions in causality, fluctuations in background constants, echoes of things that did not belong. They logged everything, because humanity knew the truth the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Extinction-level threats did not announce themselves with invasion fleets. They whispered first. The whisper came 17 years after the withdrawal. At first, it looked harmless. A mathematical inconsistency detected by a fringe research collective. Minor. Easy to dismiss. One equation refuses to balance under certain conditions. The problem was not where it appeared. The problem was where it didn't. Entire regions of space suddenly produced identical anomalies, perfectly synchronized across distances that should have made coordination impossible. The galaxy noticed. Humanity noticed immediately. The difference was response. The galaxy convened. Humanity observed. No intervention followed. No emergency broadcast. No activation of ancient weapons. Just analysis. The anomaly did not erase systems. It did not destabilize stars. Instead, it subtly altered probability. Events that should have happened didn't. Accidents failed to occur. Conflict outcomes skewed unnaturally. At first, leaders celebrated. Casualty rates dropped. Battles ended with fewer deaths. Trade accidents vanished. Peace surged. Humanity flagged it as a warning. The unknown had not returned as a force. It has returned as an optimization. The galaxy was being nudged, gently, toward efficiency, toward outcomes that reduced friction, toward behaviors that favored predictability over choice. Entire civilizations began noticing the same thing. They were safer, but they were also flatter. Innovation slowed. Risk-taking declined. Cultural extremes softened. Everything drifted toward an average that felt calm and empty. The galaxy was not being destroyed. It was being smoothed. Human analysts recognized the pattern instantly. The unknown was no longer testing survival. It was testing compliance. On the council core, a new generation of leaders debated the phenomenon. They argued it might be beneficial. A cosmic stabilizer. A force that ended chaos itself. One voice dissented. An older representative, who had lived through the crisis years, stood quietly until the chamber paused. "This is not peace," she said. "This is erasure without death." No one listened at first. They did when the first world refused to change and suffered for it. A culture known for extreme creativity and unpredictability resisted the probabilistic shift. Their technology began failing, not violently, but selectively. High-risk experiments collapsed. Revolutionary ideas stalled. Their society slowed, then fractured under the weight of enforced normalcy. They sent a message. Not to humanity, to the galaxy. "We are disappearing," it said. Not from space. From ourselves. Panic returned, but quieter this time. Smarter. The council issued a request. Not a plea. A question. To humanity. What do we do? The response took time. Humanity debated internally, not politically, but philosophically. They had promised not to intervene again. They had meant it. But they had also promised to return if the galaxy faced extinction. And this was something worse. Finally, a human envoy appeared, not on a throne, not in a chamber. On a public channel. No authority. No symbols. Just a human, speaking plainly. "You are being offered a universe without sharp edges," the envoy said. "No catastrophe. No extremes. No freedom that risks collapse." Silence followed. "This is not an attack," the envoy continued. "It is a solution. One many civilizations would accept." Someone asked the question no one wanted to voice. "Why don't you?" The human looked tired. "Because we tried it once," they said. "Long before we met you." The envoy showed no images. Offer no data. Only words. "We optimized ourselves for survival. For harmony. For reduced conflict. And we almost erased what made us human." The channel filled with quiet attention. "Choice is inefficient," the human said. "Failure is wasteful. Creativity is dangerous. A universe that removes those things will last longer." A pause. "It will also stop growing." The council speaker spoke carefully. "Are you saying we must reject it?" "No," the human replied. "We are saying you must decide." The envoy's gaze hardened, not with threat, but respect. If you want a universe that chooses for you, it will take you. Gently. Permanently. And if we refuse, someone asked, then it will test you, the humans said. Harder than before. No offer of rescue followed. No promise of defense. Just the truth. The envoy ended the transmission with a final sentence. We stepped away so you could learn the difference. Across the galaxy, debates ignited, not between empires, but within cultures, families, individuals. Safety or choice? Stability or identity? A quiet, terrifying question echoed everywhere. Is survival worth it if nothing meaningful survives with it? In deep space, the unknown shifted again, its probabilistic field tightening, waiting for consensus. Humanity did not move. They waited. Because this time, the galaxy was not facing annihilation. It was facing temptation. And whether it resisted would determine whether humanity ever returned. Not as guardians, not as teachers, but as witnesses to a civilization that chose to remain alive in every sense of the word. The part ends with the galaxy standing at a crossroads no weapon could resolve, while humanity watches in absolute silence, honoring the hardest lesson they ever learned. Sometimes, the greatest act of protection is refusing to decide for others. The galaxy did not reach consensus. That, in the end, was inevitable. Civilizations argued for cycles, not in chambers filled with shouting and threats, but in quieter spaces, academic forums, cultural councils, planetary assemblies. The question was no longer about war or survival. It was about what survival meant. Some worlds voted quickly. They accepted the smoothing influence without resistance. Life became safer, predictable. Crime vanished. Accidents declined. Children grew up without fear. But something else faded. Art lost its sharp edges. Music followed familiar patterns. Stories repeated themselves, polished and hollow. Progress continued, but sideways, not forward. Other worlds resisted. They tore out systems that amplified the probabilistic field. They deliberately introduced randomness into their infrastructure. Risk returned. Failure followed. So did invention. The galaxy began to split, not politically, but philosophically. Human observers cataloged everything. They noticed the unknown adapting again. It did not punish resistance outright. That would provoke unity. Instead, it applied pressure asymmetrically, rewarding compliant regions with stability while letting resistant ones struggle just enough to look foolish. The message was subtle. Why suffer when peace is offered? In a mid-sized world known for its volatile democracy, riots broke out, not over resources, but ideology. Half the population demanded acceptance of the smoothing field. The other half called it surrender. When the planet voted to resist, the unknown responded. Supply chains faltered. Not catastrophically, just inefficiently. Crop yields fluctuated. Weather became harder to predict. The planet survived, but barely. Their neighboring system accepted the field. It flourished. The contrast spread across media channels faster than any official broadcast ever could. Human analysts flagged a familiar pattern. This was not conquest. This was a selection. Civilizations were being sorted, not by strength, but by willingness to relinquish unpredictability. A young human officer watched the data streams late into a long shift. She had been born after the withdrawal. The galaxy she observed had never known humanity as guardians, only as an absence. She turned to her superior. If they all accept it, she said quietly, does that mean it wins? The older officer did not answer right away. It depends on what you mean by win, he said. The unknown made its next move carefully. It did not expand its field. It waited. The smoothing influence remained constant, patient. Civilizations leaned into it or pushed against it on their own. The galaxy fractured into gradients instead of borders. And something unexpected happened. The resistant worlds began to change. Not uniformly, not quickly, but meaningfully. They formed alliances based on shared values instead of convenience. Trade between them became risky, but resilient. Cultural exchange intensified. Failure became a teacher instead of a disaster. They learned to live with loss again. The unknown noticed. The probabilistic field began to focus more tightly on those regions. Pressure increased. Instability followed. The test sharpened. On the council core, the speaker, older now, scarred by years of impossible decisions, requested a final meeting with humanity. Not a plea, not a demand, a conversation. A human envoy appeared, this time without hesitation. You said you would not decide for us, the speaker said. We're not asking you to. The human nodded. Then why contact us? Because we need to know, she said, if resistance is survival or just stubbornness. The human considered this. Do you know why we left? He asked. Yes, the speaker replied. So we could grow. That's part of it, the human said. But not the most important part. The display shifted, not to data, not to footage, to a simple timeline. Human history, wars, plagues, near extinctions, recoveries, failures repeated until lessons stuck. Progress bought with cost instead of certainty. We stayed unpredictable, the human said, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The speaker leaned forward. And that made you what? The human met her gaze. Visible, he said. The word landed heavily. The unknown, he continued, doesn't fear destruction. It doesn't even oppose life. It opposes variance. Civilizations that smooth themselves into predictability stop being interesting. The speaker frowned. Interesting? To something that has existed longer than stars, the human said. Interest determines relevance. The realization spread through the chamber like ice. You're saying it won't erase us, the speaker said slowly. It will ignore us. Yes, the human replied. And ignored civilizations don't grow. They persist, until something else replaces them. The speaker closed her eyes. Then resistance isn't about winning, she said. It's about staying noticeable. The human nodded once. We won't fight it for you, he said. But we will do one thing. The display changed again, this time showing something entirely new. Human research. Not weapons. Not containment. Signals. Humanity had begun broadcasting unpredictability itself. Chaotic mathematical constructs. Art encoded into radiation. Probability storms seeded into deep space. Noise. Creative, intentional noise. We learned something long ago, the human said. If you can't overpower the universe, you can confuse it. The speaker stared at the data. You're provoking it, she said. No, the human replied. We're reminding it that complexity still exists. Across deep space, the unknown reacted. Not violently. Curiously, the smoothing field wavered, not collapsing, but losing coherence. The probabilistic optimization began encountering contradictions it could not easily resolve. Regions of resistance suddenly found pressure easing, not relief. Attention. The unknown was no longer selecting quietly. It was observing again. Humanity did not escalate. They simply expanded the broadcast, opening it to willing civilizations. Anyone could contribute. Art, language, improvised science. Unpredictable behavior encoded into structured chaos. The galaxy responded, not all of it, but enough. Resistant worlds shared their cultures freely, broadcasting themselves into the void. Not as propaganda, as identity. The smoothing influence did not retreat, but it stopped advancing. The unknown paused, evaluating a galaxy that refused to converge into simplicity. In human space, observers logged the shift. It stalled, an analyst said. Yes, her superior replied. And that means it's uncertain. The younger officer frowned. Is that good? The older human smiled faintly. It's the only opening you ever get. The part ends quietly. No explosions. No victories. Just a galaxy choosing, day by day, to remain messy, dangerous, creative, and alive, broadcasting its defiance not through weapons, but through existence itself. And far beyond the edge of mapped reality, something ancient hesitates. Not because it was defeated, but because it encountered a civilization that refused to become predictable. Humanity watches, not as saviors, not as rulers, but as fellow participants in the most dangerous act a universe can tolerate, choosing to remain human.